Hi, my name is Byung-Jun Kim. I'm a professor of the public administration at Kookmin University. I'm glad to have a lecture on this topic of key issues and the strategy for the successful implementation of the digital policy. Today's lecture is a focus on digital policy itself and the regulatory reform. This chapter introduced what is the key issue and the strategies for the successful implementation of digital policies and regulatory reform in Korea. The Korean experience in the era of the digital transformation, how we can overcoming the challenges related to the regulatory issue, and how we can these efforts to make the link to the national developments. And particularly, these areas are evolving and the new circumstances because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's look at what we can overcome these challenges and also how we can make a very important baseline for regulatory frameworks for the development in Korea. This course objective, as you can see, that start from the key issues, key strategies, and lesson from the Korean cases, and then policy consideration and the future directions. So the structure is very simple. We will talk about some of the background of the challenges and then how we can develop the policy strategies. Policy strategies will be utilized in the Korean example. Then after summary side, we're going to a little bit longer discussion so how we can understand these challenges. And because of without some of the reform effort, probably we cannot overcome current challenges such as a pandemic and the digital transformation. Digital transformation itself can be the very good opportunity we can get some benefit out of this opportunity. But at the same time, if we couldn't take these advantages from the digital transformations, probably we couldn't get any further development for the country. So let's look at the first, what is the background of these challenges. Korea right now is one of our leading countries, one of our top e-government country in the world. But look at our history of the development of the e-government. We saw that how much importance of the legal framework, because many people thought that e-government is quite related to technology issue, but technology is not the core thing. Actually, core thing is the governance or legal system. So how we can design to fit this existing offline administrative environment into these online or with the new emerging technology. We can say that this is a sort of a systemic adjustment for kind of new e-government environment or digital transformation. So how we can promoting legal system to readjusting to pushing ahead with this e-government project and policies. So as you can see that interestingly, Korea is one of the top leading country, but regulation side is we are very vulnerable or lower rank country. We have a very regulatory barrier is very high. As you can see that even we are higher, very restrict compared to the China or Egypt. So people thought that we are very advanced, but our legal system is so-called positive regulatory framework is quite important. Very negative in our and a very crucial problem right now. So we are really make a lot of effort to change it from the positive regulatory framework to the negative regulatory framework. The negative regulatory framework is quite of bring the benefit on especially this digital transformation and digital government. For example, here there's one of a very highly resistance area is medical sector in Korea. For example, telemedicine is become common in Europe and United States, and then transforming healthcare landscape even in China or other many countries. They're using very actively embracing the telemedicine. But Korea, the technology is very developed, but we are still stuck in the pilot stages, and we couldn't use it because that is a regulation issue. So right now, we from the 2019, we made a strategies approaches to overcoming that resistance and then problem. So we are say that approval first and then regulate later. So for the developed, especially in the new industry and new technology, we will drastically make a transition to comprehensive negative regulation system. Positive list regulation means only listed item be allowed and then other item is not allowed, excluded. So Korea's system is, for example, in 2001, Korean E-Government Act is one of the good registration to promoting and develop the e-government. That's why we enjoyed the later 2010 consecutively 3 times from the 2010 through 2014. It's a rank number 1 in the e-government and in the UN's evaluation of the e-government. But our approach, legal framework, is a positive risk regulation. That's why whoever has a very new idea, new innovative approaches is not allowed. But compared to the positive regulation framework, negative regulatory framework, we call negative risk regulation, listed item not be allowed, except that everything is allowed. Means some of them item is probably we prohibit, we restrict because there's a side effect or a negative effect to the society is very huge and very bad. So that's why we're gonna kind of restrict those items. But except that item, we can allow it to the other items. That means we are allowed it to the very creative idea to new, effort to make some of the new industry and technologies. That's why a negative list regulation system is a very beneficial to for the development of the new digital transformation and digital e-government. So our comprehensive negative list regulation system is because so far we are very stick with the positive system. That's why we have some of a transition effort. One of them is a flexible registration, and the other is regulatory sandbox. Flexible registration means whoever we make the negative list and then define the comprehensive concept and then make the flexible classification system. That's why whatever we have a negative list, except that negative list, other things so we can allow it. But we have still very stick on to the positive system to later, for example, like exports evaluation and management. So our make them flexible to include those efforts is really well matched with what our goal or not. So we make that flexible registration system. And the other side is we make some of the exceptions. So especially in the new industry, under some condition, in spite of the whatever current regulation, we are kind of allowed it. So first, there's a 3-step. One step is a prompt check for regulation first. So because of the regulations, new industry and new technology couldn't works, then we make the temporary permission. So make a special cases. That's why we can see the somehow change our regulatory framework from the positive system to the negative system. So this comprehensive negative list regulation system recently we introduced in our system. So that's why we are still kind of ongoing, and we are kind of transition area. So that's why we have a number of very good example. Such as like a mobile driver license or management patients with wearable e-cardiograph. So this is make us through the special cases regulatory sandbox, or mobile e-notification system with the partnership with the private sector is a temporary permissions, and also sharing economic accommodation services is another special cases. So you can see that main approaches with the prompt check make a special case or temporary permission. So this system support to how market even there's an existing law and regulation is blocked it, but within this regulatory sandbox they can do. It is not harm for the others, so that's why we can make some of a benefit out of it. So these supported example like cases. One is a mobile e-notice services for administrative and public institution notice based on text messaging, or smart IoT electronic vehicle charging outlet. This is quite a new idea. They feel like there's a public data. That's why using the public data is a better. Some notification system will be very. Every citizen can enjoy that benefit, and also new emerging technologies. But because of the lack of some basic needs for the new technologies, we asking for a temporary permission, and then we can enjoy it. That's why we can make some of a better increasing the market size, and we spreading the more prevailing the benefit of this new challenges and new innovative ideas. So regulatory sandbox is really essential for this policy strategic to change the regulatory reform in Korea. And also, there probably with the example, the more you can understand well. So here is two examples. First example, how these ICT regulatory sandbox changes our lives. The first one is, let's say there's a Mr. Kim. His name is Mr. New Kim, living in the Sejong City. Sejong City is administrative capital in Korea. He purchased an electronic vehicle after selling his old car through the service offering the comparison for scrapping car. Actually, in Korea, scrapping is really regulatory things, but through the regulatory sandbox, because Korean current regulation is whoever get the permission, but whoever want to scrapping the car in the business, they have to have own facility, but that is taking longer time. But and also there's depending on the site, their prices are different. So some of them, the entrepreneur, make some of online business joins auto. They don't have a real facility, but whoever is scrapping car facility, these new venture companies to using the data information to comparing the price and then make a better services to the users. This is one of the example for regulatory sandbox. And then Mr. Kim and use a smart charging station inside his apartment parking lot. Before it's not allowed it, but through the regulatory sandbox, he can has that facility near his place. And then Mr. Kim recently lost his driver license card, but he has a mobile driver license. That's why in his smartphone, that's why they don't have any problem. He doesn't have any problem. Also, Mr. Kim is planning to visit police station as he's received a new driver license very quickly. And also he can also notification your license is renewal. The new license is arrive in the place. So this story, one day Mr. Kim can do because of he get the benefit out of the regulatory sandbox. The secondary example, another Mr. Lee, his name is ICT Lee, went for the sudden business trip to Seoul for 3 days. And then Mr. Lee paid for home services through the mobile app and was able to book a house near Gangnam Station at a cheap price using an app recommended by the colleague. And also, last day of his business trip, Mr. Lee used a shared taxi app and application could cheaply and quickly arrive at the Seoul station despite of the evening rush hour. So it is another new idea how they can share the taxi fare fee. And the taxi provided location and price information in real time on the app with many user expressing satisfaction. So it is another kind of glimpse or snapshot of the Mr. Lee get a benefit out because of the regular sandbox is a change in our positive regulatory framework to the negative framework. So this new idea is allowed to, that's why individual citizens enjoy that regulatory reform. So main contents of the framework registration should be there's a basic principle, and then basic principle understand, and then we also understand how we can make the intelligence information utilized for that negative system, and then we also countermeasure any challenges and problem, and ethical standard, and then how we can protections, and then we have to allow the kill switch. So some of the very unexpected negative things happen. We can stop those problems. So kill switch is very important. So the legal issue is at the same time promoting to new things, but at the same time we have to protect, make the secure. Have to develop the safety net. So that is very important to make the balances. So that's why these legal issues always kind of make those balances. For this area is of finance, law, taxation, distribution, administration. For example, maybe labor replacement because of the robots. Then we make the robot tax to because of that taxation, so we can better training opportunity to labor, so they can do the creating the quality new jobs to make the balances with the robot replace the routine jobs, something like that. So this is not only for the one area; this is lots of different areas. So you can see that example here. So that's why we have to holistic view. That holistic view is probably not in the one day we come up with it. We actually, especially over the time, and then especially Korea experience is look like this. We are experiencing very kind of new and very emerging experience. Means that since 1960s, I can say that 1967 we have a first IBM computer in the administrative sector. So like a public sector government using that technologies right after military coups. This at that time very technocratic, and then Korea bureaucrats appointed, and then this is only for them. It is actually not really distance from the city. This is not really for the citizens. This is quite distant from the citizen, and then there's a little to the accountability toward the citizens. But 1980s, there's some of the democratic movements, protests. We are really government is a small and efficient government, downsizing workforce productivity, and then more customized and then responding to the citizens' needs. That's why it is to start from the e-government's era. So we have some of the throughout the stages, we kind of developed the digital policies and e-governments at the global level. We are top leading countries. Then right now, we are the demands of new digital and the policy reform for the next generation. So it is a historical, we can see that this is not the one day things. Over the times, we have many events and experience to develop our own strengths and weakness, that we want to reduce the weakness and then enhance our strengths. So digital policy regulatory reform is a holistic view. It is a kind of how we can see that the performance, capacity, leadership, governance, policies, tool, technologies, and the management approaches, all these holistic perspective to develop our own strategies. So, in conclusion, our government, the Korean government has right now facing the new challenges and new changes. And then especially new digital New Deal technology, we have 10 major projects focusing on the initiative to these changes, and then also these challenges not only for the digital industry, but kind of digital enabled green industry to make the win-win relationship. So holistic approach is not only for the regulatory legal framework, institutional part, also the industry and other parts. So we are making the holistic to balance it between the digital transformation and then regulatory reform. So Korea government cases could be the very good example how digital technologies key successful for the future lower carbon green digital industry, and then these two also increase House's chance to success in the digital public policy government reform. With this effort, eventually we can also make the digital economy developments. So this transparent government system, and also with the very digitally armed negative regulatory framework, is more opportunity to industry side and the private sector, and also there's many citizens, they make their own voice to make some of the services toward the citizens, toward the governments, citizens, and the private sector partnerships. So I would like to say that current regulatory framework in Korea kind of changes, transforming from the newer comprehensive negative listed regulatory system. So we make the very detailed roadmap and then spread this many successful cases. We expanded the cases. Eventually, we can achieve what we expected than before. So I would like to say that we are in the transition period. So our experience will be very good example for the other countries. So our experience will be can be the good lesson for your countries, and hopefully, especially we are experiencing the pandemic, and then after pandemic, there's a post-pandemic and the digital transformation era. How we can better system for a government regulatory frameworks we can discuss together. How we can globally make a good solution together. So we will continue to discuss these things, and then whatever you have any questions, you can make a comments and question in our website, and then we will continue to discuss. Thank you very much.